Part of the campus ministry there, and their heart was really to serve other people, and so we went on a trip with them. I went to Haiti, and this was probably 6 months after the earthquake, and spent about 11 days in Haiti, and just when we came back, we were really both changed in our approach towards what we were doing for God and how He was using us. And part of that trip that we went to Haiti, we met this couple. They were the campus minister. We talked to them about, like, how much do you give and how do you give? And they said, you know, right now we give 13%. And we're like, how do you do that? He's like, well, we just started small and we just increased it each year. We just thought, like, okay, we'll just start small. And it feels like each time, like, God has called us to increase it a little bit, and we've been able to increase it and not be in want. I guess fast forward to now, I guess 2018, we're going to Northgate, and we're doing Deeply Rooted experience, and we're in that group, and just really felt that God calling us to take the next step in our faith in tithing. What I didn't expect to happen was how God changed my heart. My husband is a generous giver. Like, it's just his nature, it's his gift. And for me, I always felt like I was closed my hands. I just felt like He changed my heart, and that instead of just holding hands, I opened up my hands to giving. There was a joy that came with it, and just the desire to do more, and to not just be like, well, how much did that cost us? But rather saying, it doesn't matter what it cost us, because it's yours anyway. And we're still working on getting rid of our debt. We're not debt-free yet, but we have seen how God has worked. It's only been possible because we've given first to Him. But when we were looking at what we did this lot, like 2018, it just kind of blew our minds that we were able to give so much. And we're not up to 13% yet, but it struck us that we're over 10%. We're like, how did that happen? He's always provided. And so it's been really amazing to see how His blessings have come as we have opened our hands to being faithful to Him.
Living a generous lifestyle really does change your heart. It changes you from the inside out. And that's why we do take time to talk about, and we take time to celebrate our generous giving time. Yeah. Now I want to tell you a story of generosity. It goes back 29 years ago next month. 29 years ago next month, the generous community, faith community of Bethel Christian Church sent my wife, myself, our 2 kids, 11 other adults, to a city called Benicia, about 35 miles northeast of here, to plant this church. And we were supported by the giving of Bethel for the first 6 months, and then extended for another 6 months for the whole first year. This church made a financial investment and generously helped us plant this new church. And God has done incredible things. Because of your generosity, 29 years ago, that church has continued to grow and thrive, and God has blessed to a congregation that every Sunday morning over 1,000 people gather together. We have seen hundreds and hundreds of baptisms, all because 29 years ago, this faith community said, we're going to be generous. And what's exciting about it is, exactly 1 year ago next month, we started a conversation of, what if we brought these 2 church families together as one and united in a ministry? And we started that conversation a year ago. And as that conversation has been going on, and both church congregations and memberships have been talking about it, the leadership has been talking about it, we are now in that process. And the conversation that started a year ago, now at the beginning of this year, is becoming a reality. And what's exciting about that is that we truly believe, as Scripture says in Ecclesiastes 4, 2 are better than 1, because they have a double return for their labor. And when one falls, the other is there to pick him up. And though one may be overwhelmed, 2 stand together. And we really believe that that is true, not only in our own individual lives, but in the work of God in this world. And so what we are really excited about now at the beginning of this year is bringing this one church together in 2 campuses. There is Northgate Benicia, and now there is Northgate San Francisco Bethel campus. So we believe the future of two church families, two faith communities, generously giving to the work of God can impact the whole greater Bay Area. So we are excited about what God has for us in the future. And I just want to thank you personally for your generosity towards us 29 years ago. I am so grateful. And I'm incredibly excited about what God is going to do with this one church, two campuses. And what we're going to be able to do together is just phenomenal. Now, I want to introduce you to something that we actually began 7 years ago at our Benicia campus. It's something called the Dollar Club. And I'm going to explain it to you because it's really very, very simple. For those of you who are familiar with the Benicia campus, you know the answer to this question. It's only going to cost you $1. That's it. What we decided 7 years ago, and by the way, we did this at a point when financially we were really strapped. I mean, things were not well in our church body financially. We were really, really struggling. We had a building project that we were paying on, and but we just really felt, you know what? God has so blessed us. And not just for us to spend on ourselves and not just to do for the ministry that we want to do, but God has blessed us so that we can bless others. And if we're going to tell people in their individual lives to do that, then we need to get serious about that as a church. So we have made a commitment to start this thing called the Dollar Club. And it works like this. We take attendance every Sunday. Not, everybody signs in, but just a head count to see how many people are on our campus, any given Sunday. And then we take whatever number that is. If there's 1,200 people, then we take $1,200. We set that money aside, and that money is used to help a family in need. And over the last 7 years, we have helped people with hospital bills. We have helped people who needed transportation for their job because their car broke down. We were able to help them get a new car. We have helped people with first month's rent to get into a place. We've helped people who have been out of work for some reason not of their own doing, and to be able to give them a little bit of a bridge to get them through the month to help with their rent or their mortgage. We have helped people with funeral expenses when they couldn't afford to bury their child. And over the last 7 years, we have been able to help over 350 families to the tune of over $305,000. Isn't that incredible? And that's not to pat ourselves on the back. That just simply says, when we would just do $1, that was all done with $1 per person each week. But see, when you start this generosity living, this generous living, this generous lifestyle, God takes what that little might be for you, and He multiplies it. Jesus did it with 2 loaves and 5 fish, and He continues to do it to this day. So I want to thank you for your generosity 29 years ago, for your continued and faithful generosity to this ministry here in the city for those last 29 years, and invite everyone here, above and beyond whatever other giving you might do, to just add $1 to the plate. $1 to the plate. Because what we're going to do now is we're going to take attendance, both campuses, head count, and whatever that amount is, that is going to go out this week to bless and help a family in need. And we invite you to be a part of it. Now, here's the deal. We made that decision as a leadership in Benicia, and we just thought, I don't know if anybody's going to do this, but we're committing to give the money whether people participate or not. This was a step of faith for us. But what we found was that people got on board and started giving above and beyond, and our finances and our generosity church-wide took off. And generosity changed in people's hearts and lives. And that's what happens. So I want to encourage you, above and beyond whatever giving, and if you're here today and you've never given a penny, just $1. That's a good starting point, okay? Now, here's the thing. The other thing that we started, and this actually goes back to when we first planted the church, because when we first planted the church, and there was only like 25 people, and you pass a plate, it's pretty obvious who gives and who doesn't. And we didn't want to put that pressure on people. So we decided 29 years ago, we were not going to take offerings. We were not going to pass a plate, pass a bag. We have something called these giving boxes. And we have used these for the last 29 years on our Benicia campus. And we're going to institute them this year, this Sunday, actually, here at our San Francisco campus. So we're not going to be taking a collection this morning, but we want to encourage you to live a generous life. So what you're going to find out in the lobby is one of these things. Okay? It's a generous giving box. I'm going to encourage you, your tithes, your offerings can go in there. We've got a couple of them. There's one out by the doors. There's one on the way to the elevator and the stairs on the side. And then there's also, you have had some giving boxes over in the coffee area. They've already been here for a while, so we're just adding to that. But we just want to encourage everybody. God does some incredible things in your own life. He does incredible things through you when you live this generous life. So I'm going to encourage you to be a part of the Dollar Club. I'm going to encourage you to become a regular giver, if you've never done that before, in a planned, purposeful, priority way, and just see what God will do in your life. So that's what we're doing. We're inviting you to be a part of that. There's other ways that you can give. You can use those envelopes that are in the pockets in front of you, but in the seat back in front of you. Use that, give in the giving boxes. You can also give online. You can also give through the Northgate app, and you can look that up on both Google Play and the App Store, Apple App Store. It's just Northgate app, and it'll be there. You can do it. You can take sermon notes through that app. You can give through that app. There's a lot of other ways that we can keep in touch with each other through the app. So those are the things that are going on. We're excited about this new year, excited to be partnering together and see what God has for us as we reach this Bay Area with His incredible message of grace. So with that, we got a few video announcements for you, and then we'll get into this morning's message.
Good morning, San Francisco. We are so excited that you're joining us today. We would love the opportunity to connect with you, and a simple way that we get to do that is through our connection cards. They are located in the pew right in front of you. Some of us might be sitting in the seats for the very first time today, and if that's you, I want to invite you to do something really simple with this connection card today. Once service is over, bring it out to the lobby. There's a welcome desk right before you walk out. At that welcome desk, we have a special gift to say thanks for checking us out. We want to give you an invite back and answer any questions that you might have. If it's your second or third time with us, or maybe you've been coming for a while and you've never let us know that you're here, we would love to see you over there. We have another gift for you. And most importantly, we want to hear how your time here has been so far, maybe some questions that have come up between your first visit and now, and we would love to connect with you. On Sunday morning at 9:30, we're having Bible studies meeting. These are available in both English and Spanish. For the next 3 months, we will be going over different promises of God found in the Bible. We would love for you to join us. Confident Living meets on Wednesday nights at 7:30 p.m. We are going through Romans chapters 1 through 8. This is a great time to study God's Word and also meet and connect with other people around here. We would love to see you over there. Those are announcements. We are so glad to have you here with us today.
So, you ready to kill another spider? Yeah? Okay. For those of you, this is your first time, what in the heck is he talking about? Okay. We are in a series called Killing the Spider. And the idea, we're not literally killing spiders. Although if you want to, have at it. But what we're really doing is we're talking about what are those things that clutter up our lives, those cobwebs that seem to hold us in their grip and that just seem to just gum things up and clutter up our lives. And the old saying is, if you really want to clear out the cobwebs, you've got to kill the spider. And the idea is, what are the things, what creates those webs, all right? What are those key things? And actually, the early church fathers called them the 7 deadly sins. Not deadly because they're necessarily worse than any other, but they were considered to be source sins, that they were kind of the sources of a lot of other sin that stems from that. And so that's what this series is about. We're taking each one of these 7 deadly sins and talking about how do we kill this spider. So far we've talked about the spider of pride. We've talked about the spider of greed. Last week we talked about the spider of sloth or acedia. And today we're going to kill the spider of envy. And envy is one of those that it's probably one of the more subtle and secretive of all of these sins. It's one that we usually don't recognize firsthand in ourselves, and least likely are we willing to admit it. It's kind of a secretive, subtle type of sin, but it breeds nonetheless, and it creates incredible trouble in our lives. So today we're going to unpack this whole idea of killing the spider of envy. I'm going to talk about, first of all, what drives it. What drives this? What gives it its power? And then what does it do? Why is it so dangerous? What destruction and damage does it cause in our lives? And then ultimately, how in the world do we kill this spider? So I'm going to start with this. Envy gets its power from comparison. That's the driver. That's the driver of the sin of envy. It's this comparison. Let me give you a definition of envy. It's feeling discontent or resentful over the achievements, qualities, or good fortune of another. I'll give it to you again. It's up on the screen. Feeling discontent or resentful over the achievements, qualities, or good fortune of another. And of another is the key in all of that. Greed is about wanting more. Envy is about wanting what you have and more of what you have. And it's that comparison thing. Ecclesiastes 4:4 says, I saw that all toil and all achievement spring from one person's envy of another. This too is meaningless, a chasing after the wind. It's driven by comparison. And the spider of envy weaves the web of Okay? The spider web of You know what the spider web of is? Okay? It's anything like someone who is smarter, richer, prettier, taller, skinnier, happier, stronger, funnier, cleverer, talenteder. Now, I know that's not a real word, but I had to make it fit with all the others, okay? It's that comparison. That somebody is smarter than I am, richer than I am. I wish and that's the thing. That's what drives it. And why it's so subtle and so secretive is because most of that we keep inside of us. Most of that happens right here between the ears. We're making those comparisons. But what it does is it eventually exposes itself. And it shows itself in a lot of different ways. Here's a few. Gossip. Grumbling, belittling, teasing, ridicule, rivalry, prejudice, faint praise, backhanded compliments, slander, undermining someone else's authority or leadership. Those are all ways that it begins to show itself, and you may not recognize it, but when you find yourself gossiping or belittling or talking back or talking behind someone's back, that is being bred and woven by the spider of envy. That's how it shows itself in our lives. And often it's a progression. It's a progression that starts with thoughts that moves towards these feelings that may move towards words or even outright behavior and actions. And so if we're going to kill this spider, it's got to start all the way back with those thoughts, that inner dialogue that goes on inside of us, that inner turmoil. Ecclesiastes 4:6, he goes on, he says this, better one handful with try that one again. Better one handful with tranquility than two handfuls with toil and chasing after the wind. Solomon said, this is the thing. It's driven by envy. And we are much better off with one handful with that tranquility than that striving and toiling for two handfuls. Jesus told a lot of parables, a lot of his stories had to do with this problem of envy. One of them is found in Matthew 20. Let me read it to you. It says, the kingdom of heaven, beginning in verse 1, the kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out early in the morning to hire workers for his vineyard. He agreed to pay them a denarius for the day and sent them out into his vineyard. About 9 in the morning, he went out and saw others standing in the workplace with nothing. He told them, you also go and work in my vineyard, and I will pay you whatever is right. So they went. He went out again about noon, and about 3 in the afternoon, and did the same thing. About 5 in the afternoon, he went out and found still others standing around, and he asked them, why have you been standing here all day long doing nothing? Because no one has hired us, they answered. He said to them, you also go work in my vineyard. When the evening came, the owner of the vineyard and had said to his foreman, call the workers and pay them their wages, beginning with the ones hired last and going on to the first. So the workers who were hired last, about 5 in the afternoon, came and each received a denarius. So when those came who had been hired first, they expected to receive more, but each one of them also received a denarius. When they received it, they began to grumble against the landowner. These who were hired last worked only 1 hour, they said, and you have made them equal to us, who have borne the burden of the work and the heat of the day. But he answered one of them, I'm not being unfair to you, friend. Didn't you agree to work for a denarius? Take your pay and go. I want to give the one who was hired last the same as I gave you. Don't I have the right to do what I want with my own money? Or are you envious because I am generous? So the last will be first, and the first will be last. Comparison. That's what drives the spider of envy. That's what gives it its strength. But the damage that it does is this, that the spider of envy causes separation. That's where envy always ends up. A breaking of relationship. A separation of some kind. And it goes all the way back to the book of Genesis, to the Garden of Eden. Cain and Abel. Cain is envious over Abel, so he kills him, and he ends up being banished and sent away. Jacob is envious of his brother Esau, and he steals his birthright. What happens to Jacob? He ends up being sent away. He has to take off for his life. Joseph is envied by all of his brothers, so they make a plot to sell him off into Egypt. And again, separation happens. See, that's what envy does. It causes separation. It separates us, first of all, it separates us from others. That comparison thing is what separates us from other people. It says in verses 9 and 10 that the workers who were hired about 5 in the afternoon came and each received a denarius. So when those came who were hired first, they expected to receive more. Because, well, if they worked 1 hour and I worked 9 hours, I must be worth more. And their envy caused a dissension between them and the other workers. And that's the whole deal. Envy leads me to believe that I need more of what somebody else has to feel good about myself. And it causes a break in relationships. Keeping score as a means of evaluating my own self-worth. It causes dissension and it causes separation. What's ironic about it is envy usually happens in close proximity. See, I'm not envious, for instance, I'm not envious of Bill Gates. He's got a ton of money. He lives far away from me. I am nowhere near Bill Gates. I have no way of ever achieving anything or having near as much as Bill Gates. I don't really envy him that much. You know who I envy? My next door neighbor who just got the brand new car. See, it usually happens in close proximity. We usually get envious of those that we can see, that should have been me. Or if things have worked out just a little bit differently, I could have been the one. And that's what happened. This happened to me. Some really good friends of ours have been retired for a number of years now. And, you know, I'm looking towards retirement someday. But anyway, I'm moving in that direction. And we've got these friends, and they love to travel. And they take these long, like month-long vacations to Europe. And then they post their photos on Facebook. Now, Harley is a really good friend of mine. But after looking at all of his pictures of his travels through Europe, I had to unfriend him for a while because it just was tearing me up inside. It's that inner turmoil. I could have been there. If only, you know. And that's how envy works. We usually end up envying our closest friends and neighbors. Because we see if things have been just a little bit different, that should have been me. And that's what it does. It can break relationships and it separates us from other people. You know what else it does? It separates us from ourselves. Envy is destructive to the soul. The Greek word in the New Testament for envy is phontos. P-H-T-H-O-N-T-O-S. Aren't you impressed? See, 4 years Bible college, that's what you get, phontos. Okay? But here's what it means. Literally, the word means it's a strengthened form of the word to corrupt or destroy. And that's what envy does. It eats away at you and it destroys you from the inside out. Verse 12 says, those who were hired last worked only 1 hour. Oh, this was their complaint. Those who were hired last worked only 1 hour, and you have made them equal to us, who have borne the burden of the work in the heat of the day. See, here's the reasoning. They worked 1 hour, and they got a denarius. I worked 9 hours. I got a denarius. that must mean that I'm not worth as much as they are because I'm worth 1/9 of what they are because we got the same pay. And what happens is it starts to destroy you on the inside because you start evaluating your self-worth based on comparison of other people. And it becomes destructive to you. When I envy, it's myself that is diminished. When I envy, it's me that I start feeling inferior to other people. There's been a number of studies done of athletics, and particularly in comparing the happiness of gold medal, silver medal, and bronze medal winners, first, second, and third. And they started observing this, and maybe you've seen this up on the stand. Maybe you haven't paid much attention to this, but here's what they found. They have found that gold medal winners, they are delirious because they won everything. And actually, bronze medal winners are very happy too, because they just barely made the cut, but they're on the podium. You know who's the least happy? Silver medal winners. Because instead of saying, I'm second in the world, they're looking up because there's one person that's just a little bit better than me. And you know how they made this discovery? They did it from pictures of the medal winners up on the podium. I'm going to put a picture up here. Okay. I want you to look at the smiles on these three ladies. Okay? The gold medal winner is in the middle. They are extremely happy. But look at the bronze medal winner on the right. Look at her smile compared to the silver medal. Look specifically at the eyes. It's called a Duchenne smile. A Duchenne smile is a genuine smile. It's a smile that is so genuine that it shows in the eyes. You get the crow's feet in there. The silver medal winner, that's not a real smile. They're just posing for a picture. Notice the difference in the eyes. I'll show you another one. If you couldn't see the medals, they're holding them up so you can. Guess who the silver medal winner is? The one on the left. You can see it in the eyes. See, that's the deal with envy. It destroys us on the inside that we can't even take delight in our own accomplishments. In the film Chariots of Fire, it's about a man named Eric Liddell, gold medal winner, competitor in the 1942 Summer Olympics, I believe it was. And his chief competitor was a guy named Harold Abrams. In the movie Chariots of Fire, they have their first race, and Liddell beats Abrams. They're both from the United States. And Abrams is so despondent, so destroyed over it, he's not going to race in the next race. And he's talking with his I think it's his fiancée. And he says, in essence to the fact, he says this. He says, if I can't win, then I won't run. And she says, but if you won't run, you can't win. See, envy destroys us from the inside to the point where we can't even celebrate our own accomplishments. Because we're comparing ourselves to somebody who's just a little bit better. And let me tell you about the comparison trap. You will always find somebody better than you. You will always find somebody just a little bit better. And that's the web of When we make our sense of self-worth dependent on how we stand in the pecking order, we destroy ourselves. And here's what else it does. It separates us from God. It separates us from God. Notice who they complain to. It says, when they received their denarius, the ones who had worked all day, they began to grumble against the landowner. Why? Because you're not being fair. You owe me. And that's what envy does. After a while, we start feeling like God has shortchanged me. God owes me something. God, look at all that I have done for you, Lord, and then look at what they get and I don't have. And then it starts to hurt our relationship with God. And that starts to become so obsessive to us that it can cause us to become angry with God and destroy our relationship with Him. Our dissatisfaction with what we have says more about how we feel about God than about how we feel toward the people we are comparing ourselves to. That's the destruction. That's the damage. So, how do you kill the spider? How do you kill the spider? It takes intentional engagement. Because if envy causes separation, then what it's going to take to get over and kill this spider is intentional engagement. And that's what love is. See, when you separate yourself from God, when you become angry with God, what you do is you make God the enemy. And since God is love, we make love the enemy. And so the only way to kill the spider is to grow in love. Because 1 Corinthians 13 says love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. So in a practical way, how do we do this? Well, I've maintained through this whole series that there are specific, intentional disciplines of the Christian life that have been practiced for generations and generations, for centuries now, that have become part of how you grow in love, how you grow in your relationship with God. And I'm going to give you 3 of them this morning that I think you'll find helpful in killing the spider of envy in your life, although you don't think it's there. Trust me, it is. All right? So, first one is this. It's the discipline of solitude. Solitude is simply getting alone with God. Spending time alone with God. Because what you need for your sense of what self-worth is a completely different foundation than the comparison trap. You need to know that you are loved and are of great worth and value to God. And you will only know that if you spend time with Him. See, that's what the landowner says. I am not being unfair to you. Don't I have the right to do what I want with my own money? Or are you envious because I am generous? When you get some time alone with God and you begin to recognize His goodness and count what He has done for you and the blessings that He's put on your life and the goodness that He has shown to you, and you will realize how truly genuinely generous He is toward you, you begin to understand that's where my value and that's where my sense of worth needs to come from. That I am loved by the Creator of the universe. Solitude, time alone with God. I'll tell you 2 ways that I've learned to do this. One is through journaling. I have in my office at home now probably about 50 or 60 different journals. And I don't do it every day, but I have tried on a regular basis to make time almost every day if I can to just spend some time alone with God. And what I have found in my own life is keeping a prayer journal slows me down long enough. Because when I have to write out my prayers or write out my thoughts or write out my praises, by just writing them out slows me down long enough to think about and to bask in the love of God for me. Spending time reading in the Psalms is incredibly uplifting. Jeremiah 31. I love this. This is one of my favorite verses in the Bible. I have loved you with an everlasting love. I have drawn you with unfailing kindness. You just need to sit for a moment and let that one verse wash over you. And hear God say that. I have loved you with an everlasting love. Drawn you with kindness. There is a God who loves you, and your sense of worth and your sense of who you are and your value should be found in God's love for you. And you only get that when you spend time with Him. So practicing solitude. Here's how you can do it. There's a quick way to remember it. Divert daily, withdraw weekly, and abandon annually. Every day, take some time to be alone with God. Divert daily. And then weekly, on a weekly basis, carve out some time, some extended time with God. And then abandon annually. One of the things that I have done for many years in my pastoral ministry is try to take a study break. For at least a week. I've not always been successful at it, but I've tried to just get away and just be with God. Because when your whole life is ministry in front of people, you tend to get your sense of self-worth from the compliments that you get. Okay? And you also tend to value your self-worth by the criticisms you get too. And then you do this roller coaster. And it's really good to just get alone with God and just realize, it's just you and me, God, and that's all that really matters. So solitude is one great, great one. B, second one, is secrecy. And this has to do with leveraging what God has given to you. That God has given you gifts and abilities. And to leverage them means to use them for His work. But here's the tricky part, and this is what specifically will deal with envy, is don't let anybody know. And that's the hard part. James 1:17 says, every good and perfect gift comes from above, coming down from the Father of the heavenly lights. That God has given you exactly what you need. Good and perfect gift. That has all come from Him. And it may not be the same things that He's given somebody else, but use what He's given you. Leverage what He's given you. In fact, that's what Peter wrote. Each of you should use whatever gift you've received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. So leverage, use the gifts, use the abilities, use the resources that God has given you to serve other people. But the spider killer part of all this is do it in secret. Don't let anybody find out about it. And I'm going to warn you up front, that will kill you. Because you were going to want somebody to know what a wonderful thing you just did. And when you feel that inside and it's just killing you, and you just got to tell somebody it's just killing you, just remember this, what it's really killing is the spider of envy. And that's a good thing, okay? So, practicing secrecy, using and leveraging what God has given you, but doing it in a way that nobody finds out. And then the last one is celebration. Delight in what God has given others. Genuinely appreciate and delight in what God has given somebody else. Jesus taught us that God's grace at work in somebody's life is something to be celebrated. It's another parable Jesus told. Actually, he told 3 of them back to back to back. It's found in Luke chapter 15. Parable of the story of the lost coin, the parable of the lost sheep, and then there's a parable of the lost son. And at the end of we know it as the prodigal son, that's what we call it. But you get to the end of that story, and the son has returned, and the father throws a party. And then the older brother, who is out in the field working hard away, just like the workers in the vineyard for the last 9 hours have been working hard, and now he returns, and there's a party going on, and he refuses to go to the party. And it makes such a big stink out of it that his father goes out to get his older brother to come and celebrate his younger brother's return. And the older brother refuses to go in. He refuses his father's wish. He will not celebrate God's grace at work in somebody else's life. And this is what the father says to him. We had to celebrate and be glad because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is now found. And the point of the older brother part of the story is this. We are to take delight in what God is doing in somebody else's life. When God's grace is at work in somebody else's life, in whatever way, through a great achievement or through an act of repentance, it is still God's grace. He is the generous landowner that we should not be envious of, but we should celebrate, and celebrate genuinely. And I'm going to tell you, that's going to be hard. But do it anyway. Because if you practice these 3 disciplines, it will kill the spider of envy. And here's the deal. Recognizing and celebrating what God has done in somebody else's life or through somebody else's life does not diminish you one bit. You can still celebrate it because God has done it.